when I needed to establish a better relationship with self, when I needed to connect within, feel the connection again, remind myself of who I am and what my truth is, then spiritual practices was really something that was so helpful for me. Spiritual practices has truly changed and shifted my life. I started with it at a point when I really needed to turn my life upside down and create a totally new structure and foundation. And I started with spiritual practices, and that was what helped me a lot. And now I still actually revisit and check in on my rituals, routines, ceremonies that I do for myself on a regular basis, so that I know that what I do is actually helping me, it's actually activating me, or it's embodying something within me, or it's preparing me for something, or whatever it might be, right? So we're going to talk about this today, and I'm going to go in a little bit of how I see what a spiritual practice is, why I think that you should maybe use it in your own life, why that can be beneficial for you. And in the end, we will also have 3 very potent and deep questions to ourselves that will help you to design your own spiritual practices. So stay until that. We will get really detailed on what we need for ourselves, what we want for ourselves, what type of spiritual practices that is ours. Because I know that we can also, depending on if we just want new inspiration or if we haven't had so many practices from before, we can get a little bit, like it can be a little bit overwhelming with so many different alternatives that are out there, and people are saying like, this helped me or this helped me, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the truth for you. So that's why I think it's so important that we tune in and ask ourselves, what type of practice is it that I need? What type of practice is it that I desire? What type of practice can amplify and enhance my life and my everyday life? So I'm super excited. I'm so excited for this today. Let's get into it. So what is a spiritual practice? First and foremost, according to me, it's simple as you're connecting with yourself. It is a practice that you do regularly to connect with self. You can connect with others as well, but essentially in the end, in one way or another, you're connecting with yourself. So I know that many of you maybe think about spiritual practices such as yoga, breathwork, tarot card, maybe pendulums, some witchcraft. Some of you maybe think about some certain type of dance or meditation. You know, there are different types of spiritual practices. Then we also have this type of spiritual practices of ceremony, rituals, whatever it is. One type of practice doesn't fit all, and that's why it's so important to talk about what type of practice it is that fit for you, so that you can actually have the benefits of that certain type of practice. I understand that it can be fun to try things out, but sometimes when we are searching for deeper answers or meaning or more quality of our lives, we also do actually want to find practices that really suit our life, our lifestyle, what we believe in, and what we feel good about, right? So essentially what a spiritual practice can help you with is that it can help you to create a more intentional life. That is a biggie for me. Like, it has definitely helped me to be more intentional, focused, concentrated. It can also help to create more space for yourself, tuning in to yourself, of course, space for reflection. It's also a very good way to emotionally regulate, both to prepare yourself and also to be able to have some practices that you can tune into when you need to emotionally regulate in the moment, but afterwards when you need to think it through and so forth, right? So it's really good for like this emotional regulation and if you experience it once in a while, hormonal fluctuations or mood swings, or that your energy levels goes a little bit up and down or whatever it might be, then a spiritual practice might be very good for you. And I know that many of you that are listening, by the way, may be already doing a lot. And some of you will not be doing so much. This is really for both of you, for all of you. no matter where you are at your journey. I do look through my spiritual practices once in a while, a couple of times per year, and ask myself, like, are they helpful for me any longer? Do I need to make some type of changes? What is it that I want the most now? And are they supporting that or not? So I do this on a regular basis. A spiritual practice do also help you to connect to other versions, to connect to the version that you want to be, or to connect to another type of reality, right? What spiritual practices have done for me is that it brings peace, it can bring acceptance, joy, satisfaction, more so fulfillment, more moments of solitude. I know that there are many people who say that I want more space for me. I do get those questions often in tarot card readings, for instance. But I also have had those questions in coaching calls. I have had those questions. I get those questions a lot about friends. And since that is kind of a foundation that I have in one of my coaching packages, actually, Better Vibe, we'd go deep into spiritual practices as well, and really forming different type of practices in your life that can help you to build a new foundation for yourself. So it's something which I'm very passionate about, but I'm also really good at it because I've done it for so long. Actually, I'm a Taurus sun, so practicality has always been something that which I favors, and I love to make something spiritual very practical. So for me, it's like I have a very big love for that, and I've been tweaking, adjusting, finding the different type of practices and routines that works the best for me. So for me, it gives a lot, and it can be used for a lot. It can be used for feeling more harmony, to de-stress, and so forth. It can also be used in moments when you need to shift, when you want to activate something within, when you want to concentrate, as I said from before, if you want to master something within self, if you want to create a certain type of experience. The opportunities are endless. You can use spiritual practices to whatever. Okay, so before we go into today's questions, I do want to just give you a little bit of story time, and then we will design your own spiritual practices. There was a moment in my life where I felt that I needed better routines. I needed to improve my routines a little bit. And when I started to search, I got these kind of tips of that, yeah, get better sleep, don't watch the news in the morning, don't log into social media the first thing that you do. And for me, it was like, yeah, I'm being regular in my sleep. Social media has never been the first thing I do in the morning, so I don't understand what you're talking about. The news, what is even the news? It was like, for me, I didn't do those things, and that has never been a habit of mine. So I felt that I couldn't resonate, and I felt that I couldn't really take benefit of those advices. But I felt that I was stressed. I felt that I was, especially in the mornings, but also in evenings, of course, but it started in the mornings, that I felt like I'm so stressed every morning. I always feel so stressed and just so rushed in the morning. I don't like that feeling. What is it with it? And I also feel unfulfilled. I don't feel great in the mornings. So I started to ask myself from within instead, so what is this about? And I noticed that even though I seemingly didn't, do things that was outside of me, so to say, things that watching social media or watching the news and so forth, I didn't tune into myself either. I was somewhere else in my mind. And my nervous system was always on. It was in a reactive mode. I was so busy getting ready for work, thinking about what train was it I was about to take now again? Will I have time to eat breakfast? What type of breakfast in that case? Should I put some makeup on today? What clothes should I wear? Do I want to wear this clothes? Or maybe that looks a little bit weird. Went around and around and around with a lot of maintenance questions, actually, but also a lot of questions that was just not tuning in. It was just about getting ready for work. And it was a lot of other things, like underneath that as well that was really like stressing me. So I could maybe look in the mirror and have mean thoughts towards myself, or I felt like unfulfilled, or I was afraid of that people would see that I had these cry out eyes in the morning, because I've been crying the whole evening from before. I was in that moment of my life when I did that a lot. So I constantly thinking of, will people notice anything about me? What will people think? Will I get to work in time? Will I be able to de-stress until I get to work? So it was always, always, always until something else outside of me. I prepared for the world, where I needed to prepare for my inner world first, right? So notice that I will not go into the details more of that, but notice that that was where it started for me. And when I really started to realize, okay, I need some certain type of practices so that I can de-stress, so that I can tune in the morning, so that I can reflect on how I feel and why I feel that, so I can catch myself in my emotions, so that I can really make a change and actually wake up happy, wake up in harmony and peace, and wake up with me being the highest priority and me being the most important person. Because if I can't show up towards myself, how can I show up towards the world? Why do I tell this story? Because this is a little bit connected to the questions that I will very soon ask you to ask yourself, so to say. And that is that I was also understanding that I don't just want to create some certain type of routines, rituals that I will start for a while and then I will think is boring, or it will not feel helpful, or I will not have the consistency in it. Like, I really want to have quality of my practices now. I really want to have something that is sustainable, something which I feel that I don't bail out on, something which I feel that I'm actually looking forward to. I want to make it different. I don't want to feel that it is kind of another must or another add-on to my life in that way. Like, I just want to feel that this is something that I feel so excited for doing, and it's bringing me a lot of richness into my internal world and my life in general. So because of that, I really did into the most important parts when it comes to spiritual practices, and this is what I'm going to teach you about right now. So let's grab your phone, pen and paper, whatever it is. You can pause the video, but you can also write it down now and then reflect on it later. I do a little bit differently depending on how I feel for that day. But I most of the times like to follow through, so I pause between. So the first question that you're going to ask yourself, and I'm going to explain later why this is, you're going to have the full understanding of it. But the first question you're going to ask yourself is, when I am at my most authentic self, how do I feel then? Write down a couple of feelings, emotions, what comes up to your mind. So when you are the most authentic self, might it be that you are happy, very joyful, playful? Might it be that you are very calm? May it be that you feel very harmonic? May it be that you feel curious? Maybe that's very authentic to you. How are you the most authentic? This is the basics. This is the foundation of your spiritual practices. So the next question you're going to ask yourself is, when I'm feeling at my lowest, what feelings can describe that situation then? So maybe it is that you feel very negative. Maybe it feels that you're very overwhelmed, or maybe it feels some certain type of disturbances, maybe anger, resentment, resistance, doubt, insecurity. So this is kind of the pick-me-ups, and I'm going to get back to that later, what I mean with that. And then the last question is, when I want to give myself something extra, how does that feel? Maybe it feels more qualitative. Maybe something that you're deepening to something. Maybe you feel a deep sense of appreciation. Maybe you feel a high sense of gratitude. What is it for you? Okay, so now when you have these feelings that you've been writing down, and pause if you need to, as I said. But now when you have these feelings, we're going to go through this one and actually add spiritual practices that are based from these feelings. They're not based from, okay, this person said that it's very great to do tennis every morning, so let's try that. No, it isn't anything about that. This is about, okay, this is how I feel at my best. So this is the experience I want to create for myself, and this is the practice that I want to create with it. So the first question that I asked about when I feel at my most authentic self, that is the base, that is the foundation, that is the typical practices that we want every single day, or many times a week, or many times a month. Because we want to practice continuously to tune into self, tune into self, tune into self, what feels most authentic. So we feel that we can on a daily basis operate from our authentic self. So those feelings that you wrote down on that question, let's say you maybe wrote joy, for instance. Now I want you to think through what type of practice that can be that creates joy for you. For me, I know it is sitting with tarot cards. I get so joyful about it. It's about journaling. It's about writing. It's about expressing myself through words. It's sometimes even expressing myself through some certain type of dance, where you're saying that, yeah, when I feel calm, I feel at my most authentic self. What kind of practices can that be? Well, I feel very calm when I'm more peaceful. Maybe listen to some certain type of sound healing. Maybe I even play something myself, or when I meditate. Now, for the next question that we talked about, when you feel at your lowest, what is that? And these are the practices that we want when we want to practice our emotional regulation, and when we want to have pick-me-ups, when we want to pick ourselves up, when we want to give ourselves that extra hug, when we want to care for ourselves more, and we want to create more space for ourselves because we need that in the moment. So maybe you tend to feel a little bit irritated or frustrated often, or you tend to feel overwhelmed, or you tend to go into a negative headspace. Whatever you chose for this section, these are your pick-me-up practices that you will have in your spiritual toolkit. Maybe it is that I'm just free journaling, so writing all the thoughts out. Or maybe it is that I go for a walk, so I breathe in the fresh air. Maybe it is that I do some emotional tapping. I know that people like that. I'm not that biggest fan of it, but that just came up in my mind. And then the last one that we're talking about, what we want to feel when we want to have something extra. Okay, so this is when you want to give yourself some extra treat. You want to give yourself some treatment in one way or another. You know, a spa experience for the soul. You want to give yourself some extra attention, for instance, or maybe appreciation, or maybe you want to feel really, really relaxed or relieved, maybe even, right? So what is it that when you feel that you want to celebrate a little bit extra, that you want to create a little bit more space than you normally do, that you want to feel a little bit like your life is just a living fire of extraordinary, right? What type of practices can you have to those feelings? Might it be that you just want to do it more or deeper, deepening into a certain type of spiritual practice? That it can be. Or can it be, I, for instance, have like, I don't necessarily feel that I'm at my most authentic self when I feel adventurous, and that I have to feel adventurous on a daily basis. But when I want some extra treats, sometimes I want to feel that I'm on a trip, that it is a little bit adventurous, that I bring my brave little Linnea within, right? So it can really be something that you're not so often also using, that you want when you want to shift and shake a little bit. So that is your treatment in your toolbox, so to say. So now when we have all of these different type of practices, when we had all of these different type of examples, how it is that we can connect to ourselves on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, and so on. Now the next step for you is to start to implement it, or if you already do this, do it with more of that feeling. So I want you to take one from each section, from each question at least, and implement it. and try it on and see how it feels. Do you feel that you are expressing yourself so much more now when you're doing your daily writing routine, for instance? So feel into these emotions. Give yourself this week to try on these different type of practices, and especially if you've been doing a certain type of practices for a long while, tune into the feeling. Do I really feel this feeling that I want to feel in these practices? And how can I do that more? Or can it just need some certain type of adjustments? Do I need just a little bit more intention to it? Or is it something that I want to adjust within it, or whatever it might be, right? Is it something that I want to do more of? So feel into it, but also always, always, always remember to start with the feeling. Start with the feeling, not with the practice. The practice is just the tool in your little toolkit that you design right now. But the foundation, the core, is the feeling, the experience that you want to create for yourself. Because also the experience that we create for ourselves is also the reality we create, right? So if you want to be a master of creating the reality that you want, this is also important, actually. How does this feel now? Now you have created your own spiritual toolkit, and you've done it from your heart. You're not only having this toolkit now and practices for things that you crave for, but you also have it for the things that you desire the most. What lights your fire and what treats you well.